Hey Rosebuds, welcome to the Rose Garden, where we will be discussing important social issues and trending topics. I'm your host, Nyeri Rose. Hey Rosebuds, it's your host, Nyeri Rose. And first of all, I just want to say I am so happy to be back on the mic, to be back talking. I took a break, a much needed break. I had a lot of stuff coming up, and I just knew that I needed to step away and just, live life, get outside of the metaverse, and experience my actual reality. We are all busy. We all have things to do. So I'm just really happy to just be back, and a lot has happened since I've taken a break. Best believe that I still check my social media. I still try to see, what's going on, what's happening. And sometimes I just have to put my phone down because it's just like, wow. But I'm going to make the very conscious decision to just pick up right where I left off, and boom, let's get into it. This episode is going to be conversations about Roe versus Wade. And I just feel like I am only qualified to have a conversation about Roe versus Wade because, one, I'm a woman, I identify as a woman, and I have children, and I just feel like the government making decisions on my body, your body, even if you're not a woman, this might affect, your sister, your auntie, your cousins, your friends, somebody that you might know, they're sitting there trying to figure out, okay, what's happening? What is happening in the world that I live in the country that I am living in? What is going on? And so with that, I just feel like I need to first break down what Roe versus Wade is, and then we can just get into an open conversation about how I am affected, how have I been affected by this, and what does this mean for our future? Because honestly, as someone who works with teenagers, young adults, they are, not all of them, but some of them are very misguided and looking for someone like a mentor, or just looking for a family friend, someone to help lead the way. And it's hard to reach these young-minded individuals because of how polluted our government system and our political system is right now. I mean, I'm not one to get into politics just because it's a dynamic that I quite don't understand, but I know that some of the things that are in place are used as strategic tools to confuse, to cause discomfort, to hurt, to abuse, and real people are affected by these decisions that are made that we have no part of. We are not sitting at the table. Although this is a democracy, we are not sitting at the table having these conversations. Yes, we have our vote, but a lot of people are let down because they realize the vote is not in their favor. So what do we do here? So as far as Roe versus Wade, it's it has to do with abortion. And before I took my little break, I was just kind of like, man, oh man, are we really doing this? Are we really going to open up this can of worms? But the Most High, God, whatever you want to believe in, even if you believe in nothing, something wants us to sit down and figure out who we are. There is a spiritual being or spiritual beings that need us to have this conversation right now. That's why it's happening. Move all the individuals to the side who are making these decisions. You can choose who you like or who you dislike. But honestly, I think that some of us need to start having conversations about the choices that we've made, about the choices that we are going to make. And so when these things happen and they disturb the minds of those who are still trying to figure life out and figure themselves out, when these things come to the forefront, we need to sit with it. We can't just sit on Instagram and post, oh, I agree, or oh, I disagree, or oh, this person said this, so I don't like them because of their opinion. Because my husband always says opinions are like buttholes. Everyone has one. And so we need to sit down and have these conversations with those around us to figure out, okay, why is this happening in 2022? What's the deeper meaning or messages behind this? And so basically, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Roe versus Wade, even if you're well versed in it, long story short, it's a decision made from the Supreme Court that allowed women to basically have an abortion. It was legalized and you could go have an abortion, and this happened back in 1973, I believe. Now, the backstory is that a woman, her name is Norma McCorvey, and she was about to have 3 kids, or she had 3 kids. I'm not sure, I just skimmed through when I was reading. But basically, she filed a lawsuit anonymously, naming herself as Jane Roe, against a district attorney named Henry Wade in Texas. And at that time, he was the person in charge of making decisions regarding abortion laws. And she knew that she was living a life of just disarray. She just didn't know, what she wanted to do. At the time, I believe she was 26 when all this went down. So she's just experiencing life, and she's finding out that living and having children and taking care of those children is a difficult task. I believe her second child she gave up for adoption. So it's kind of just like everything was feeling heavy, and she just said, I can't do this. Now I'm already hearing the people who are judging. I'm already hearing the people, well, she decided to have them, kids, and you know how you make kids, and she was doing this, so if she was doing that, she should be able to take care of those kids. And I just want to stop all judgment. It's going to just stop right here. From this moment forward, we are not judging anyone. We're not placing blame on anyone. These are just the facts that we have. Because I think that is the thing, especially because abortion correlates with religion. And I always say I don't want to get into it, but I really don't. I come to you guys from a spiritual standpoint and what's just on my heart. And what's on my heart right now is let's sift through this without judgment, because I grew up in a Christian household. So already I'm challenging myself with being able to speak out and use my voice and talk about these, issues that are controversial. And if we're going to be judgmental and we're going to use the Bible says, let those that are without sin cast the first stone. And I feel like a lot of us have experienced sin or anything that we feel guilty of or ashamed of or feel like we've made a mistake. So no one should throw stones. End of conversation. So this woman, she found in her right that she could not take care of her children, regardless of the decisions that she was making. So she took it upon herself to be that beacon of change for the whole country, and they legalized it. So, what's the problem? 50 years later, the Supreme Court overturns it. So before I went on my 2-week hiatus, this is what was happening. Everyone was in an uproar because the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, meaning states have the ability to determine policies related to abortion rights, which includes banning them, meaning you cannot go to Planned Parenthood or your local clinic or the hospital and have an abortion as you please. States now control that. Hence, they can make them illegal, or they can also restrict access to contraceptives and preventative measures to just stop pregnancy, i.e. Plan B. And so a lot of people, they feel some type of way about this. And I think that people are going to be more conscious now when they're, dealing with other people and having intercourse with other people. People are going to be very much more conscious of, well, if I can't so easily go and take care of a situation, what does that mean for me? And honestly, I see like pros and I see cons. I see both sides. I'm not picking a side here because I see how it can benefit some who might be going through their spiritual awakening. There could be someone out there who has, been abused, and they could have been abused by a man or woman. And so instead of doing their shadow work and healing and figuring out, how to forgive themselves and forgive those that hurt them, they could just be latching on to other human beings and trying to fulfill that void. And in the midst of trying to fulfill that void, here comes a child. Life has been created. Whether you didn't anticipate it, because they say most pregnancies aren't planned, they just happened. But, what can you say? Everyone finds love in strange places, just as you might find abuse or just a tricky situation where you are taken advantage of, and then that leads into someone that you know or you don't know. They might rape you, or someone might be raped, sexually assaulted, molested. All these things can happen. And in these situations, a child can be created. So now the government is saying, okay, you better make sure you put your seatbelt on, because we're making things even harder for you. We're making access and resources to things. We're limiting that. You are now accountable for the things that you do when you step out into the world. You have to protect yourself 10 times more than you did before, especially as a woman. Because women they are the womb. They create the child. So women, if you have the ability to get pregnant, you better watch who you're getting pregnant by. You better be careful. And it's so interesting because since I've just been like out and about in the world, I'm still like, I'm working and doing all these things. I've talked to so many women. And I've heard their stories. And I've gotten to realize how abortion or just how intimacy affects them. And for most women, it centers around pain. It centers around abuse. Most of the time. But even in situations where there is love, having a child alone is a lot. It's a lot to carry. Speaking from personal experience, it might not be that you don't want to have a child. Maybe you're just afraid that having the child will be your demise. Do you guys know how many women of color die from childbirth? Do you know how many complications a woman can have just from being pregnant? I had preeclampsia with both of my sons. And I believe preeclampsia is like high blood pressure. And at the time that I had them, especially when I had my first son, I had no prior health problems. I wasn't significantly overweight. This was my first child. And I was experiencing high blood pressure, coupled with a whole lot of things. I won't say that my husband contributed to my high blood pressure. Thankfully, he didn't stress me out at all. He was very supportive, but just the day-to-day challenges of the world, because anything can happen in a day, can lead to an unsafe environment. And an unsafe environment can complicate your pregnancy. And let's think about that. If my environment is not safe, and the leaders of my environment, the people who are supposed to be taking care of my environment and making sure that it's a safe place for me, if they're not doing their job on that, then how do they get to make the rules about what happens to my body? Like, America for me is like the biggest contradiction. And so when we think about Roe versus Wade, I want you to think about that right there. Roe versus Wade. Simple as that, you have duality. Roe versus Wade, duality. Left versus right. Right versus wrong. Black versus white. Like, you could go blue versus red. Like, there's so many things that are oppositional. And I think those are the centerpieces of this bigger puzzle. Because we're not actually getting to the root of the problem. We're just putting out solutions. Oh, we made a decision. Let's change it. We're going to change that. We're going to remix it a little bit. Okay, here you go. Let's see how you feel about this. But we're not actually getting to the roots of the problem. The trauma that people go through, that individuals go through when they interact. How this reality still feels very unsafe. How you meet someone and they can seem like one person and then they turn around and they're a complete stranger. Because there are so many situations beyond just, oh, well, she was having sex before marriage, so she's a Jezebel anyway. That is not the answer. That's not the end all be all. And I'm finding out more and more that women are just afraid to talk about their experiences because we are so judged. And this is not man versus woman. I'm not saying that because I know men go through so much. I'm not downplaying what men go through. I'm just talking from the standpoint of being a woman. And I know that women experience a lot of disheartening situations. Because what is the opposite of love? Pain, hurt, sadness. That's the opposite. So if women represent nurture and taking care of, and then they approach someone or they get hurt and taken advantage of, and then they have to sit with the child that is created from this, what kind of person will that be? A lot of women, they want to know, okay, well, if I was in a messed up situation and I get pregnant, I don't even think that this life deserves a chance. I just want to get rid of it. I don't want to take a chance knowing that I created something with someone else and the root of it was not centered around love. So why would I give birth to something that I don't even love? And we have to sit with the thought of, is that right? Is that the right way to go about it? Are we qualified as those who hold the womb? Are we qualified to make those decisions? But no, you can't even make those type of decisions anymore. You have to be more calculated than that. And you'd be so surprised at how many women, especially our ancestors and just our mothers and aunties, just if you look around, a lot of people carry secrets. They carry their own personal secrets and pain and trauma because of fear of being judged, a fear of being ridiculed. Some things, especially in the Black household, we don't talk about. Growing up, you don't talk about therapy, and you definitely don't talk about abortions. That's just no. You don't talk about that. At least back then, I don't know about now. I feel like a lot of the women that I spoke to on my journey, on my life path, a lot of them were afraid to say, hey, I've had an abortion. Hey, I've been through this situation and I have no one to go to. I have no one to talk to about it. And I say that because I was one of those people. I was someone who was faced with having an abortion. And I had no idea. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no idea of how impactful such a thing could be. Making a decision, a conscious decision to terminate a pregnancy, just forget how you even got to that point. Making that decision, I would say from personal experience, is one of the most painful things you could ever go through. And on top of that, you have to live with it. You have to live with it. You have to not only live with it, but at times you might mourn the child that could have been. And for me personally, I just was able to open up with this. I was not even realizing how this decision that I made was affecting my livelihood. How I mentally would punish myself for what I did, for the decision that I made. But at the time that I made it, I knew, and I told myself, seeing the women around me, seeing my mother raise me as a single parent, when I got the inclination that I would have to do it alone, I knew that I couldn't do it. It's women out there who do it every day, and they do a fabulous job, a phenomenal job, taking care of their children, stepping up and being there for them. But me personally, I knew I wasn't ready. I knew that I was not ready to not only be a creator of life, but to take care of it. I knew I was irresponsible, and my stuff, all my stuff was not together. I did not have my stuff together. What was more impactful was knowing that the person that I created the life with, they were completely fine with me making the decision. And for that, at the time, I carried a lot of anger and resentment, but now I understand and I forgive and I let go. Because I'm not here to bash anybody. We all have our stuff that we have not figured out. So speaking from a personal standpoint, I made a call. And that call has forever changed my life. I won't say for the better or worse. I just know that it changed me. That whole entire experience changed my life. But I knew that I was no longer going to be reckless. I knew that I was going to take care of my body, my mind. And that is when I realized, okay, there's a lot going on in this world. From the people that I make connections and friendships with, that is when my spiritual awakening began. Because here I am sitting here alone with no one, making these heavy decisions based on the choices that I have made. And that's when I realized I am the main character in my story. What am I going to do? I cannot blame anyone for my choices. I cannot victimize myself any further because here I am choosing myself over the life of what could have been my child. But I knew consciously I did not want to have a child that I was not sure I could take care of. If I was unsure if I could love. Could I love this child? Could I take care of it? Could I get my stuff together? I did not know that. So in my ignorance, I told myself I could not do it. And that's where I went wrong. Personally, I went wrong by telling myself I can't do this. Some people, they don't make that decision. Some people just say, okay, if this is the will, then this is what I'm going to do. But a lot of people are choosing themselves. A lot of people are choosing them. And they're making the decision of whether I can or I cannot do this, or the conditions in which I'm going to give birth. And couples are making the decision together. It's not just single women out here. There are married couples. And I just found this out. There are married couples that are making these decisions and saying, can we afford to do this. And it's not always selfish. Back then, our grandparents and parents, they used to have 8, 9, 10. I think I had a cousin who had like 23 kids. But if you're living on a farm and you can afford to have that many kids, that's what you're going to do. That's how it used to be. But look at the world that we live in now. Having to take care of a child is difficult. And there's no excuse, but you have to look around you. You have, I hate to bring up the Bible, but it's kind of just like you have in the Bible stories and situations of siblings not liking each other. We experience jealousy, hate, envy with friends, strangers, people we don't even know. So who's to say that doesn't happen in people's households? Having a child is a big responsibility. So if you know, or a woman knows, I do not think it is a wise decision to carry this responsibility, then initially they had a choice. But now that choice is taken away. It's been taken away. And now we have to sit and think about our decisions prior to making them. That's that third eye chakra. Using your intuition and telling yourself, should I be doing this? Should I be, am I at the right place at the right time? Now, unfortunately, someone could still get hurt. Someone can still be abused, and they may be a child and they may not have the resources to get out of their situation. But for those of us who are well aware of our actions and the life choices that we're making, we have to be careful in everything that we do, because the government is showing that our choices are no longer ours. They are showing us that free will no longer exists. And they are also telling us that they still punish those with free minds, free thinkers. This is a dangerous playground that we're in. But at the end of the day, what I'm learning, especially with looking into my past and realizing all the mistakes that I've made and all the things that I've been through, I'm starting to realize we have to forgive. We have to forgive ourselves. We have to forgive other people, and we have to do better and consciously make decisions that are for the betterment of our future generations. And it may sound cliche, but obviously we're left with no choices here. And those who are in an uproar about these laws being changed, I completely understand. But you also have to realize everything that is going on. Everything that is going on. This is a direct attack against us, civilians. You raise the gas prices. You say you're going to cancel student debt, but you don't. Inflation has gone up through the roofs. You cannot afford groceries. People are making dicey money choices right now. And people of color are still being denied opportunities, resources, entry into obtaining equity. And now you have to have your child. Whatever child is created, you have to have that child. Because that might be the potential in whichever state you're in. So on top of it being expensive for you to live, for you to breathe, for you to move, get from point A to point B, they want to drive you into working, being a slave to whatever corporation. If you're not working for yourself and you don't have a business, they're driving you back into the workforce. This is prolonging any stress, illness within you. This goes for women too. I'm speaking of men and women. Just look at the bigger picture here. It's not just about abortion. But me speaking candidly about what I went through, it took for me to forgive myself. I realized where I was, what I was going through. And now looking at it now, I'm thankful and appreciative for the lesson. We all go through this life to experience and to learn from our lessons. Because what is life? If you're not out here experiencing life, then what are you here for? Do your shadow work. Speak your truths. Own up to the mistakes or choices that you have made. If you have been harmed, forgive that person. If you have negative thoughts, tell them to go away. They do not serve you. They do not make you who you are. Especially if you're thinking down on yourself. Anything that you've done, it's the past. It's already happened. You cannot go back and change it. All you can do is alter your perception so that when you look to yourself in the future, you see a better you. You see an improved you. You're not confusing yourself based on what the government is doing. You're atoning for your sins. If you want to make it about religion, you can. But just know that the agenda is bigger than that. And so I just wanted to have this conversation about Roe versus Wade, because I know that there are so many women out there that have been impacted by abortion alone. Maybe you've had one. Maybe you know someone who's had one. Or maybe you didn't have one and you could have thought about it. And even if you didn't think about it at all, the word itself is triggering. It's a hot topic. But it should not be used against us. It should not be used to distract us. Because at the end of the day, if it's not abortion, it's gun laws. And we already talked about mass shootings. And that's a reoccurring thing I see. So when we get into these political debates, please be mindful of the bigger picture. If you know someone that's gone through something, hug them. Tell them you love them. When I opened up about this situation to my husband, I just boo-hoo cried. And he was there for me, and I appreciated it. I appreciated it because I know how easy it is for women especially, and men too, not just women, men too, individuals in general. We can look at ourselves and we can say the most nastiest things. We can tell ourselves that we're dirty or we're unclean, we're non-deserving, and that blocks us from our higher selves and our full potential. And we should no longer do these destructive things to each other and to ourselves. So, I hope this was helpful to anyone listening. I hope someone could resonate with this. And if you're listening to this and you don't have any kids, it's just something to think about. Be responsible with your body. Be responsible with your life. Be responsible with your mind. Okay? Because you only have this one lifetime. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening. You see the controversy. You know what's going on. So you can think about it. You can have conversation about it. Don't internalize it for too long, because you have so much work to do. You have so much work to do. And your story is not over. Okay? Your story is far from over. So while you're still here, protect your peace. Protect yourselves. Protect your peace. Protect your state of mind. All right? And with that being said, stay tuned for more episodes. I thank those that are listening. And I'm just so appreciative to be received as I come back. And I just have so much more to talk about. And always remember, when life throws you thorns, search for roses. Peace.